service delivery, food security, climate change mitigation, and environmental sustainability. Fintechs, banks, and other financial institutions can work together to provide innovative financial solutions for small-scale farmers by leveraging mobile technology and alternative data sources. We can improve access to credit and other financial services for smallholder farmers who have traditionally been underserved by the traditional formal financial sector. Under this tech-driven new push, we must also promote financial literacy and capacity building to ensure that farmers are empowered to make informed financial decisions. Distinguished participants, as we may all be aware, the financing ecosystem has barely scratched the surface when it comes to the development of demand-driven agricultural financing solutions. Among the challenges faced are managing risks, high transaction costs in dealing with a large number of small farmers and micro, small and medium enterprises, lack of expertise to backstop agricultural loan portfolios, and ineffective policies for mobilizing private sector capital for the sector. Nevertheless, Kenya is now ready for a remodeled financing mechanism that promises better days for the agricultural sector. Indeed, our country's fourth medium-term plan, 2023 to 2028, which was officially launched last week by His Excellency President William Ruto, outlines the key policies, programs, and projects that the government plans to implement to support growth and transformation of this important sector of our economy. Among the plan's priority projects is the Agricultural and Rural Financial Inclusion Project, which aims to enhance access, efficiency, and stability of agricultural and rural finance. This intervention will facilitate transformation of agriculture into a modern, innovative, and commercially oriented sector. The theme of this conference is apt and timely in positioning our country for resilient agricultural enterprises. I am happy to note that among the issues you will deliberate and focus on over the next 2 days are government priorities for agricultural progression and identifying areas where investment is needed, financing transformation and government incentives and frameworks, de-risking investment in agriculture, technologies and digitalization and research, private sector involvement and needs of SMEs and financial institutions, leading from the front and honoring commitments. I reiterate the government's commitment to creating an enabling environment for financing and investment in agriculture. I am certain that working together, we will unlock the full potential of Kenya's agriculture sector and achieve our shared goals of food security, economic growth, and sustainable development. I look forward to actionable outcomes from all stakeholders in this conference. Meanwhile, I assure you that my office will offer the necessary support in delivering the recommendations and solutions you propose. I assure you also that the Kenya government will support the creation of any framework that will not only contribute to growth of this important sector of our economy, but is also geared to benefiting Kenyans at the bottom of the pyramid. I thank you all and wish you fruitful deliberations for the next 2 days. It is now my pleasure to declare this conference officially open. Thank you. Mr. Minister, maybe before I step off, let me just add 1 or 2 quick points. First of all, I wish I would really have liked to be here to to engage a little more, but as my colleague indicated, we have the Minister for Foreign Affairs from Hungary, who is coming in, and we have some engagements for bilateral MOU to be signed off. So I have to leave to be able to do that. The second thing I just want to quickly point out is that the Executive Order number 2, which was signed off by the President, is very specific that we must work very closely with the Minister for Agriculture and the people in the agricultural sector to be able to step up our export potential and to attract foreign investment. As we grow local, we also attract the foreign investors. So we are conjoined at the hip with the Ministry of Agriculture in this agenda. But let me just quickly flag one or two things. The private sector is absolutely important for us to achieve growth in agriculture. It's absolutely essential. And I would like us, particularly those of us who are in government and those of us who are politicians, because that is where a lot of these manenos come from, we must not look at the private sector as an opposition. So when you're engaging with the private sector, don't look at them as an opposition and therefore in the process create unnecessary bureaucracy and hurdles because the mentality is that you want to frustrate the opposition. Let's look at the private sector as partners. That is what is going to really transform our engagements. I say so because we have seen times when the government sometimes assumes they can do better than the private sector in certain areas, and we land into difficulty. And there are many examples. I had the opportunity at one time to serve as the Minister for Agriculture. My colleague is now there. And when there was need to bridge the food deficit gap through the cereal board, and you don't have the exchequer funds, but sometimes you'd have a constituency in government arguing that it must be government to handle this. My experience was that if you prepared and gave a transparent proposal, levelized the field, the private sector used to fill that gap without any difficulty and without an additional cost to the exchequer. So sometimes when we need to look at the deficits around us in terms of essential commodities that have a deficit, I think if we work carefully with the private sector, if it is in the import program, the private sector can fill that gap and help the government, because maintaining all these talks and expecting the exchequer to pay for it translates into higher taxes eventually for the ordinary citizen. So my plea is that we need to really embrace the private sector as partners and not look at them as an opposition wing. This is the Kenyan private sector, and we should look at them as partners, and we should work towards making them even better partners. On the flip side, let me also appeal to the private sector. Sometimes this challenge is not just completely misguided. Some of these challenges are also because the integrity of the private sector is lacking. For people to have confidence in that private sector, the private sector must also espouse integrity in the process. There's nothing wrong in having a profit motive. But when the profit motive turns into greed, then that is where the problem arises. It has to be balanced. Obtain your profits, but let it not be greed. If, on the other hand, you're the private sector and you're given an opportunity, perhaps to bridge a certain gap, whether it is rice or edible oil, for heaven's sake, on your part, have integrity and bring in things that fit the bill and the standards. Because if it is human consumption, or if it is something for our livestock, or if it is something that is fertilizer-based, please, on your part, also do it with integrity so that you can build confidence in the farmers, in the people in Kenya, in the consumers, that you are a responsible private sector. So this is absolutely essential. It cuts both ways. Those in the public sector respect the private sector, and those in the private sector, please earn the respect by doing what is right, ethically. And that way, I think we shall be able to build our agricultural sector tremendously. As you are all aware, it's no longer news. It's in the public domain. Foreign or diaspora remittances have now exceeded our earnings, our foreign exchange earnings. The diaspora remittances were about $4.2 billion US last year. They have exceeded coffee, they have exceeded tea, they have exceeded horticulture. But in terms of a long-term strategy, are we really going to say that our resilience should be dependent on diaspora remittances? So this is a challenge. How do we get back the agricultural sector? How do we get back the tea? How do we get back the coffee? How do we get back the floriculture and horticulture to be at the top, so that we can diversify and actually strengthen our economic base even more? So I hope the outcome of this conference will provide some answers in this particular area. At the same time, please also reflect on how we can work together with the private sector. The government of Kenya, for instance, signed the EPA, the European Partnership Agreement, giving us quota-free and duty-free or tariff-free access to 27 countries in the European Union. How do we bring that down to the farmer? How do we really domesticate what the government of Kenya executed? Help us so that we unbundle these agreements, so that the ordinary farmer and the private sector in Kenya can literally seize the opportunity and leapfrog our deficiencies to greater inflows for the people of Kenya. So in your conversation, please also give some due consideration that how are we going to maximize on these very important agreements that we have executed between us and our partners. So ladies and gentlemen, let me stop there. But thank you for indulging and giving me just a few minutes. If I leave, please understand, so that I do not maybe miss out on another potential bilateral agreement that would be very good for the people of Kenya. Thank you, and God bless you all.